نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار ثم أما بعد. We're back reading from Kitab al-Siyam, the book of fasting, من كتاب al-Fiqh al-Muyassar في ضوء الكتاب والسنة. We are reading the book of fasting from the book al-Fiqh al-Muyassar, fiqh made easy, simple fiqh, however you want to translate that, or better yet, not translate it at all. In light of the book in the Sunnah. And yesterday we began reading from Abab al-Thalith, the third bab, Mustahabbat al-Siyam wa makruhatuhu, the recommended acts of fasting and the disliked acts. And we got through the first 5 mustahabbat, the first 5 recommended acts, which were as-suhoor to eat breakfast, something light before fasting, ta'khir as-suhoor, to delay the suhoor, ta'jil al-fitr, to rush the breaking of the fast, al-iftar ala rutubat, then to break fast upon rutub, and ad-du'a inda al-fitri wa athna as-siyam, to make dua at the time of breaking fast and throughout the fast. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah ta'ala, number one, before we begin reading, I want to apologize about the time and just make a clarification. The time is moving forward for those who live in countries that participate in daylight savings time. And for those who live in the eastern part of the world, from Greenwich on over east, then the change has probably already taken place in the UK and wherever else. We have a brother in Indonesia, we have a brother in Japan, and other than that, I'm not sure where everyone is. Those people, if their countries participate in daylight savings, it's already happened. As for those in the West, right, basically America, then the change has not taken place yet. And so tomorrow, it will be the same time for us in the eastern part of the world. The class will be at the same time for the eastern part of the world, but for the people in the West, it will be 1 hour later because their time will change tonight for them, which is today for us. So I apologize for any misunderstanding or confusion. I myself did not take that into account, and just but one brother informed me when I said the class will begin in 8 minutes as a reminder that it was still early for them. And then I realized, well, the time had not changed for them yet. So I apologize. But starting tomorrow, for those in the western part of the world, the time will be 1 hour later from where you are. And for in the eastern part of the world, then it should be the same time as it is today. Tayyib. After that, we'll continue, inshallah ta'ala, with the mustahabbat, and we reached Raqam al-Sadis, the sixth one, al-Iktharu min as-Sadaqa, to be abundant in giving charity. Wa tilawati al-Quran. Wa tilawati al-Quran. And tilawati is majroor here because we have the same min. Al-Iktharu min tilawati al-Quran. And to be abundant in reciting the Quran. Wa taftiri as-sa'imin. Taftir. As-sa'imin. Taftir meaning to give someone food to break fast with. To give someone food to break fast with. As-sa'imin, those who are fasting. So to feed the fasting people. وَالسَّائِرِ أَعْمَالِ الْبِرِّ, and the rest of the actions of righteousness. So during fasting, it is recommended, yustahab, to al-iktharu min as-sadaqa, wal-iktharu min tilawati al-Quran, wa-iktharu min taftir as-sa'imin, wal-iktharu min sa'iri a'mal al-birr. فعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال, so on the authority of Abdullah ibn Abbas, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, قال كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس بالخير. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous of people. Ajwada, Ajwada nas. Ajwada because it's khabar kana. Kana ajwada nas bil khair. He was the most generous of people in good. He liked to do good. He was the most generous in doing good. Wa kana ajwada ma yakunu. And he was the most generous that he would be fi Ramadan. Fi Ramadana. Hina, at the time, yalqahu Jibril. At the time that Jibril would meet him. Wa kana Jibrilu yalqahu fi kulli laylatin min Ramadana. And Jibril used to meet him in every night during Ramadan. فَيُدَرِّسُهُ al-Quran. And he would teach him the Quran, or he would go over with him the Quran. فَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ حِينَ يَلْقَاهُ جِبْرِيلُ. So the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever Jibril would meet him, أَجْوَدُ بِالْخَيْرِ مِنَ الرِّيحِ الْمُرْسَلَةِ. Then he was more generous in doing good, in giving. The khair here means with wealth, basically. He was more generous with wealth and in giving and in doing good in general. Min al-rihi al-mursala. Then the winds which are spread about. They bring all types of khair, from bringing pollen from one plant to another and moving rain clouds and whatever wind are good that they bring. So we should be doing al-iktharu min as-sadaqa, وإكثار من تلاوة القرآن وإكثار من تفطير الصائمين وإكثار من سائر الأعمال البر. Are there any questions? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
You're a little bit low, but I can raise you up on my side. Give me a second. One brother said, Adam, I don't know his name. Let me see. Persad something.
Trinidadi.
Okay. He said class was before at 12 a.m. in his country. Now it's at 10:30, which is easier on him. All right. Yeah. Inshallah. I mean, I have to be a little tighter in the end because I have to take my son to school. So I'm going to probably try to cut it off at around 50 to 55 minutes, which might be better for everybody anyway. And I know it might make it harder on some, but in the end, I think it'll be easier on everybody, inshallah, for the most part. Overall, not everybody, but for the most part, inshallah. Tayyib, let's continue with the 7th Mustahab Act. Amir, you ready? You ready, Amir?
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you, yes.
I don't know what's going on, man. If I try to move my screen, if I want to pull up my file, you can't hear me then. So I'll try to read it from your list. Inshallah, I'll try to translate it as much as I can, inshallah. Okay, الاجتهاد في صلاة الليل. الاجتهاد, trying, what's the word? Subhanallah, الاجتهاد. Making yourself pray Salatul Layl. That's the best way I can put it.
Striving,
yeah. Hold on. بالأخص في العشر أو الآخر. No, في العشر. The timing on here is, I can't see it good.
الأواخر
من رمضان.
No.
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
You should print that paper out, Amr. You should print it out. Yeah, we heard you. Okay. You should print that paper out so you have it with you. You don't have to have a screen too. Then you can write on it as well.
I have it, but it's in the house. I'm in the car right now. Especially during the 10 last nights of Ramadan. فعن عائشة رضي الله عنها, and on the authority of Aisha رضي الله عنها, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العشر شد مئزره وأحيا ليله وأيقظ أهله. What the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would when the 10 nights would come, he would tighten up his izar, and he would live up, as in make his night like, alive, and he would wake up his people, his family.
No. Ahya laylahu, meaning he would spend it in prayer and worship, right? He would enliven it. How did he enliven it? Not by, what people do today, going to clubs and playing video games all night and all that stupid stuff, but he would do it with salat and dhikr.
Naam. ولعموم ولعموم قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and in general his due to his statement صلى الله عليه وسلم, من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه, who stands in prayer for Ramadan with iman and hoping that Allah is going to forgive him. غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه, it has been it will be forgiven. غفر this is past, right?
Yes. He will be forgiven.
He would be forgiven for what has preceded before from his sins.
Now, so a person should be doing its jihad fi salat al-layl. They should be striving to perform the night prayers, which we know to be tarawih, called tarawih in Ramadan. وبالأخص في العشر الأواخر, especially in the last 10 nights في من Ramadan. Min Ramadan, from Ramadan, right? This is what the Prophet ﷺ encouraged us, according to Aisha, what he used to do and what he encouraged us. من قام رمضان إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. And there's also من قام ليلة القدر إيمانا واحتسابا غفر له ما تقدم من ذنبه. Whoever stood the night of Qadr. And the only way you're going to stand the night of Qadr is by standing all 10 nights of the last 10 nights. I'll read number 8. Al-i'timaru. Al-i'timaru. Not a dhamma. I'timaru. Basically, to make umrah. Al-i'timar, to make umrah. Liqawlihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's recommended to make umrah in Ramadan. And for those in a blessed 48 countries, and I don't know who they all are, but they're now able to get a visa at the airport. It takes a couple minutes. You could do it on your phone. You could do it on your phone or on your computer, and you pay around $140, and you can get a 1-year visa that you can enter into the country multiple times, up to 90 days in a year, right? And so making Umrah in Ramadan now should be easy. Even from the West, where tickets might be expensive. I don't know how they are, say, coming from Japan. I don't know. Or Indonesia. I don't know what tickets are. Maybe about the same. But maybe $1,000. Maybe $1,000, and then a couple $100 for hotel and food. And if you're just trying to make Umrah, you just be there for a couple days and come home. You maybe need $1,500, right? Visa and all. So it's easy now. You don't need a group. You don't need anything. You just go by yourself. لِقَوْلِهِ sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is due to the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Umratun fi Ramadan ta'dilu Umrah in Ramadan, it equals or is equal to Hajjatan. It is equal to Hajj. Umratun fi Ramadan ta'dilu Hajjatan. Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullah. So this is something we should be striving to do. Amr number 9.
نعم. قول إني صائم لمن شتمه.
No.
Saying I am fasting for who insults him. وذلك لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم, and this is due to his statement صلى الله عليه وسلم, وإذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم فلا يرفث. No. Is it فلا يرفث?
فلا يرفث.
Okay. فلا يرفث ولا يسخب. يسخب.
يسخب.
يسخب. Okay. وإذا كان يوم صوم أحدكم. So if it is a day that you're fasting in, do not behave obscenely. Is that okay to
Yes.
translate it like that? Okay. ولا يسخب, and do not shout or yell. فإن سابه.
فإن صابه.
نعم. فإن صابه أحد. So if فإن صابه. I know it's about insulting. فإن صابه أحد. So if somebody insults you, is it
Who? Him. Insults him. If someone
right?
insults him.
فإن صابه أحد. So if someone insults him, أو قاتله, or hits him,
Fight
فليقول.
him.
Fights him. Okay. Or fights him, فليقول, then say إني امرأ. No, wait. إني امرأ
No.
صائم. I am a fasting individual.
I'm a fasting individual. Exactly. So
Oh.
you should. This is recommended for the fasting person if someone insults him or fights him to say "Inni imri'un sa'im," right? Or a person could just say "Inni sa'im," I'm fasting. No problem, right? Tayyib. Now, that's the completion of the mustahabbat that are mentioned in this book, right? The first 5 have to do with food. The first 5 have to do with food. So, suhoor, right? Ta'khir suhoor, to have breakfast, to delay the breakfast. Ta'jil al-fitr, rushing the breaking of the fast. Al-iftar al-rutub, and to eat or break fast with rutub. And then الدعاء عند الفطر وأثناء الصوم or siyam, and then to make dua at the time of breaking fast and throughout the fast. And then we have al-ikthar min al-ibadat, right? Oh, al-a'mal al-bir, then to do a lot of or be abundant in acts of worship and doing good deeds, such as صدقة وتلاوة القرآن وتفطير الصائمين, such as charity and reciting Quran and feeding the fasting people. And that doesn't mean they have to be poor. You're just feeding someone. You're helping someone who's worshiping Allah, even if they're not poor. You give them some food and then you share in that ajr. Al-ijtihadu fi salat al-layl. We should be striving to perform salat al-layl, right? Especially during the last 10 nights, wal-i'timar, and making umrah, and saying I'm fasting if someone abuses him, right? If someone abuses him. طيب, now we're in the makruhat. We're going to bring Abu Muhammad in, inshallah ta'ala. Hopefully he's got his everything together.
I have a question, but after he finishes that sentence, inshallah, because I don't
No,
want
go
to.
ahead.
So you see the first, it says yakrahu.
Yukrahu, okay.
See, yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you. How do you know when it's in the beginning, when it's yukrahu or yakrahu? How do you like? Do you have to go read the context, or is there a rule that you
Yeah,
can
you
follow
have to
that
read
makes?
the context. No, you have to read the context.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. No.
Okay, jazakallah khair.
Well, yeah. Abu Muhammad, assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
كيف حالك أخي؟
نعم. المسألة الحمد لله بخير. How are you أخي؟
I'm good, alhamdulillah.
الحمد لله. المسألة الثانية مكروهات الصيام. The second affair, the detestable things for fasting.
نعم.
Yep. Okay. طيب. فكرة مش forget. نعم. يكره في حق السائم بعض الأمور التي قد تؤدي إلى جرح صومه ونقص أجره وهي so it is detested or disliked in the right of the fasting person some of the affairs that can lead to harming his fast and decreasing his reward وهي and they are المبالغة في المضمضة والاستنشاق going to extremes in taking in water into the mouth and the nose when making wudu وذلك خشية أن يذهب الماء إلى جوفه and that is because of fearing that the water will enter his stomach. أخي can I ask why is it خشية?
Why is he not doing so? Khashyatan. Right?
Yeah.
Like
So is
tamyiz.
that
Why is he doing so?
tamyiz. Okay. So is it like hal or is it?
Yeah,
or is it
similar.
tamyiz?
Tamyiz and hal are very similar to one another.
Okay. لقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبالغ في وبالغ
Balik. It's a command. Even though it's a command. No, recommendation, it's a command. وبالغ.
وبالغ في الاستنشاق إلا أن تكون صائما. So go into excessiveness or excessively do istinshaq. Is that the taking the water up the nose? No. Except if you are fasting.
No. So al-mubalagha to be the word, it's really hard to be extreme or excessive, but it just seems wrong to say that. But to exaggerate, I think that's a good word. Exaggerate in al-madmada, which is swishing water around in the mouth. Well, istinshaq, taking water into the nose, right? So to exaggerate in doing this, meaning don't just sniff it, no. Bring it in, hard, right? And this is because the Prophet ﷺ said, "Wa balag fil istinshaq," and be exaggerating doing this istinshaq, illa an takuna sa'iman. And some of the medical doctors, they say that many of the problems that we have of today in our sicknesses and sinuses and all of these types of things are because we do not really clear out our sinuses and our noses. And if we did this mubalagha in this, then we would probably get rid of many sicknesses. Anyway, this is something that we should do unless we are fasting, because we fear that water might enter into our stomachs.
I heard that Sheikh Sulman Raheli mentioned the same thing.
No.
Good benefit.
No. I'll read the next one, inshallah, and then leave last ones for you and Amir, inshallah. We'll just finish this page for today. Al-Qubla. Al-Qublatu, which is kissing. Liman taharraka shahwatuhu. For the one who taharraka, motivated or incited, shahwatuhu, his desires are incited easily, basically. He gets excited and incited by his desires easily. So he should stay away from al-qubla, right? It's from the makruhat for him. وَكَانَ مِمَّنْ لَا يَأْمَنْ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. And for the one who does not feel safe, right, for himself, right, from falling into other acts. فَيُكْرَهُ لِلصَّائِمِ أَنْ يُقَبِّلَ زَوْجَتَهُ. So it is disliked for the fasting person to kiss his wife. O amatahu, his slave girl, or his slave girl, right? لِأَنَّهَا, because this qubla, this is the hat here. لِأَنَّهَا, because kissing could tuaddi ila itharat shahwa. It could lead to addi from alif or hamza, dal, ya. This is the root of that. Could tuaddi, it could lead to itharat shahwa. Basically, I don't know a good word right now. Developing shahwa, have an effect on the desires. It could increase the desires. Allati tajurru, which pull. Like we have the word jar, right? Harf jar. This is a preposition. Harf jar. Allati tajurru, meaning to pull something. Ila fasad as-sawm, which will pull the person or will pull the fasting towards being corrupted. Fasad as-sawm. Bil imna'i, by ejaculation. O al-jima', or sexual intercourse. فَإِنْ آمَنَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ, but if he feels safe for himself, min fasadi sawmihi fala ba's, if he feels safe that he will not corrupt his fast, he will not ejaculate, he will not do things which will lead to sexual intercourse, then fala ba's, then no problem. لأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, because the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يقبل وهو صائم, he used to kiss while he was fasting. قالت عائشة رضي الله عنها, Aisha, our mother, al-Mu'mineen, may Allah be pleased with her, she said, وَكَانَ أَمْلَكَكُمْ لِأَرَبِهِ, he had the most control, amlak, from like meme, lam, kaf, like mulk, to control, to own, to be the sovereign over something, right? Kana amlakakum, he was the most controlling, li arabihi, right, of his Arab. What is his Arab? A hajatihi, of his needs. He was able to control his needs. Meaning he was able to control his desires, his needs for relations. وَكَذَلِكَ عَلَيْهِ, and likewise, عَلَيْهِ, it is upon him, تَجَنَّبُ كُلِّ مَا مِنْ شَأْنِهِ إِثَارَةً, or ithara, and I had a problem here figuring out what goes on this ta marbuta, so we're just going to read it without knowing that right now. وَكَانَ وَكَذَلِكَ, and likewise, alayhi, it is upon him, tajannabu, to avoid kulli ma min sha'nihi, everything which is from its affair, itharata shahwatihi, everything which will incite his desires, affect his desires, وَتَحْرِيكِهَا, and incite them, motivate them, all of that, right? Ka-idamati, like idama, T. It's from dal wal mean, to constantly do something. Ka-idamati nadri ila zawjati, like constantly looking at the wife. So you look at her while she's cooking, while she's doing this, you're looking at her like with desire, right? If that's going to affect you, then don't do it. Or amati, or the slave girl. Or at-tafakkuri, or constantly thinking, fi sha'nil jima', in the affair of thinking, constantly thinking about sexual intercourse. بأنه قد يؤدي, because it could lead to ila imna'i, to ejaculation or jima'. Everybody understand?
No.
طيب. Amir.
Can you let Muhammad read?
Abu Muhammad. Okay, Abu Muhammad.
نعم.
اقرأ لنا
طيب.
الرقم الثالث.
طيب الثالث بلع نخامة. Swallowing, I don't know what nakhama is. Sorry.
Nukhama is phlegm or mucus.
Okay.
Nukhama with a dhamma on the noon.
Okay, نخامة. طيب بلع النخامة لأن ذلك يصل إلى الجوف, because that reaches the stomach.
نعم.
ويتقوي به, and he strengthens himself. يتقوى به, and he strengthens himself with that, or nourishes himself with that.
No, he becomes, it's like, because what is phlegm? Phlegm is basically, like stuff from your body, which comes from like food and stuff, right? Comes from different things. So it's like basically food that has turned into this phlegm that your body has rejected or whatever. So you become strengthened by it. You become nourished by it, even though it might seem, as we'll see, إلى جانب الاستقذار.
إلى جانب الاستقذار والضرر الذي يحصل من هذا الفعل. I don't know what istiqdar means from the aspect
Istiqdar is like something being gross or detested, something, like, that's why I said it might, it will strengthen you, even though it's something that's detested. If you heard someone hawk like and then swallow it, you'd be like, man, that's nasty. Spit that stuff out,
yeah. So from the angle or the aspect of detestable and from harm that can occur from this action.
No. So bal'ul nukhama, to swallow phlegm. Right? We're not talking about swallowing. I know some people, they never ever swallow. I met some kids that they were told you cannot swallow during Ramadan because the saliva broke your fast. So they would spit in a cup all day long, or in a water bottle. Like, man, you know how dry your mouth is going to be at the end of the day, and that's something they did all the time. So
I think we were told something similar when I was young. I come from a Pakistani background, so it's yeah, similar thing that you
No.
can't swallow.
So anyway, but here it's swallowing phlegm. So when you get something in your throat, you have a cold, that type stuff, that phlegm, that mucus, then swallowing this, because that could enter into the stomach, and it basically it could be nutritious, even though, like we said, it's disgusting, right? In the janab al-istiqdar wa darar, and it also harmful. It could harm a person. وَالضَّرْ الَّذِي يَحْصُلُ مِنْ هَذَا الْفِعْلِ could also harm you. Why? Because you're swallowing that sickness that your body has already rejected. So you're not getting it out. You're not extracting it from your body. Rather, you're just taking it right back into your blood system by swallowing it, you know. So this is something that does not break the fast, right? Does not break the fast, but something is makruh. He doesn't say it breaks the fast. He say it because no one considers phlegm food. No one says, "Oh, that's food," but the body could be whatever the word is, gain nutrition from it or something like that. But we're not saying that's what it is, and no one's swallowing phlegm so that they cannot be so hungry, right? But it could reduce the fast. The reward of the fast, it could harm you, and it's just not something which is really acceptable. Amir, you with us yet? Oh. طيب رابعا والأخيرا اليوم ذوق الطعام ذوق الطعام لغير الحاجة, to taste food without a need. To taste food without a need. فإن كان محتاجا, but if he was someone who does need to do so, محتاجا إلى ذلك, he needs to do that. فإن كان محتاجا إلى ذلك, if he did need to do that, كأن يكون طباخا, like if he's a cook. You work in a restaurant and your restaurant is making food to be delivered to people's houses at the time of iftar. Right? يحتاج لذوق ملحه. He needs to taste the seasoning. Here it says the salt. I'm going to say seasoning, but it says salt. ملحه. He needs to taste how much salt he's putting in it. وما أشبهه, and whatever is similar to that, like seasonings or pepper or whatever the case might be. He needs to taste how much of this he's putting in there. فلا بأس, then no problem. مع الحذر, along with being careful. من وصول شيء, from anything reaching. من ذلك, from that. إلى حلقه, to his throat. Halq is his throat. He has to be careful that none of what he's tasting reaches his throat. However, if he were to taste it on his tongue and then spit it out, right? And spit it out all the way. And maybe, afterwards he could do madmada. He could rinse his mouth out or something and spit it out, making sure he doesn't swallow any water. And he has to do this because he's cooking. He's a cook. And he's preparing this and he doesn't want to. It's his job or whatever the case might be. Then there's no problem with that. But he has to be careful that none of that reaches into his throat. Any questions?
No, that's fine.
With that, we've reached the end of Al-Bab al-Thalith. With that, reached the end of the third chapter. the mustahabbat al-siyam wa makruhatuhu. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll stop here. And tomorrow we'll enter into a Bab al-Rabi', the fourth chapter, right? Which is fil qada wa siyam al-mustahab wa ma yukrahu wa yahrumu min al-siyam. So dealing with making up the fast and recommended fasts and what is disliked and what is haram from fasting, meaning which fasts are disliked, not what is disliked during fasting, but which fasts are disliked or prohibited. There are certain fasting that could be disliked and certain ones that are prohibited, such as fasting on the day of Eid, right? Or fasting Fridays alone or Saturdays alone, like this. Any questions about what we've covered?
Okay.
9 more
I
pages.
just want to know time tomorrow.
You're in
Same
Indonesia,
time?
right?
Yeah, it's
I don't think your
nice.
time will change. It'll be this time. It'll be this time from here on out.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe.
Jazakallah.
I believe so because you're on the eastern part of the world. For the western part of the world, their time will change in a couple hours, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I didn't take that into effect. It didn't matter. It was going to affect somebody some way. So, alhamdulillah. So, inshallah, it'll be this time until we finish the book. Then we'll figure out what to do if we're going to do anything in Ramadan. And then after Ramadan, we'll figure that out as well. We'll look at the Fajr time and all this, and inshallah. What is fast? Oh, fasting every day. Yes.
Jazakallah.
Wa yakum. Amr, you have something to say?
I wanted to ask you about a hadith. I don't think it was mentioned here. Maybe when I was when I was not in class, maybe it was mentioned. But the hadith when you hear the adhan for the suhoor to end, when the starting of the fajr, during the starting of the fajr, to not leave your inaya, to drink, to finish up your food, even when you hear the fajr. And I read somewhere, I think it was in Islam Q&A, that it's better to leave off, not to wait for that time, so you don't so you don't eat, you don't end up eating while you hear the adhan. But some say, like Sheikh Uthaymeen, that you still finish eating, that you don't stop when you hear the adhan, that you complete whatever is in your hand.
Whatever's in your hand, right?
Right.
Whatever. If you have the cup in your hand or whatever, you have a date in your hand. And this all comes from number one, that's why we have 2 adhans. And the 2 adhans should be all year long, right? For those who are fasting and for those who need to wake up. The first adhan will wake people up, let them know, hey, look, get your sahur, right? Or Fajr's almost in, get yourself together. The second adhan that you know that actually Fajr's in, is time to pray. So you hear that first adhan, then you start finishing up. That way you're done by the second adhan, right? How much is between the 2 adhans? The time for one muezzin to climb up on top and the other one to come down, right? For him to come down and the other one to go up. So it's only a short time, right? A couple minutes. There's only, a few minutes between the 2 adhans. So when you hear the first one, you should start wrapping it up. That's number one. Number two, or you get up quickly and, even just drink a drink of water, like it said for sahur.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, what's in your hand? We a lot of times, I learned this from bin Baz, rahimahullah, not from him himself, but from listening to his life and looking at him. And that is, and I'm not saying that this is how it has to be, but, he didn't pick up another morsel of food until he was done chewing the first morsel of food. You know what I mean? He didn't, what we do is, for instance, we eat, and while we're chewing, like say we're eating French fries, for example, while we're chewing, We put a couple more fries in our hand and put some ketchup on it, waiting for us to swallow that one so we could hurry up and put the next one in there. And Ben Baz, rahimahullah, he didn't used to do that. He used to chew his food. When he was chewing his food, then he would pick up the next morsel of food. You know, these are like etiquettes that a person would have. So if you're having an etiquette like this and you pick up the food and then the adhan is called, then you eat. But if you're just going to constantly be, you know, stuffing yourself, then Allah knows best. Allah knows best. Should you eat your whole plate of food? Sheikh Falah, he said no. Sheikh Falah, rahimahullah, he said no. You don't eat your whole plate of food. If you have something in your hand or something in your mouth, you don't spit it out. You finish it, right? But you don't. Be gluttonous. Like some people, they just, you know, they might pick their whole plate up, knowing they see the adhan clock and they know the adhan's in 30 seconds. They pick the plate up and say, "Oh, my plate was in my hand," you know.
Mom.
I mean, you know, well, a lot most time people do stuff, man.
Because some people, they'll stop. Like as soon as they hear the adhan, they still have something in their cup, and they'll just stop, like because of the fear the adhan came. You know what I'm saying? But then that hadith comes to my mind, and I'm like, just finish what you have, whatever you have in your hand, holding in your hand. But if you already intended to stop it, it doesn't matter. Even if you have leftover, then Allah knows best. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to figure out what's best to do regarding that, to follow the hadith as well, or what's recommended to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's best to not have food in your mouth at that time. If you have something, you know, this is if you have something in your hand. You see what I'm saying? It doesn't say every day you're going to have something in your hand. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you're not done yet, if you picked up that cup to swallow, to like rinse out your mouth from the dates or whatever you were eating, and the cup is in your hand and you're about to take a drink, then take your drink. You know, if that's the case, but that doesn't mean like to make that the case. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So try to finish up before the adhan, because at the adhan, it's just fajr. But if you have it in your hand, if it's in your mouth, then finish it. But not that you pick up, you start eating a burger and you got a big old burger in your hand and you just took the first bite and say, but it's in my hand, so I'm going to finish it till I'm done. You know, maybe if you're sincere with Allah and you're not doing it to play a game, maybe he'll accept it and there's no problem. But is it safer to not do that, to pick up a burger or a brand new burger right at the time of the adhan? Of course, it's safer. You know, it's meant to finish something, not start something. You know what I mean?
I'm not trying to prolong this, because you might have a brother, he's finishing and he's like, no, I don't want to, even if I have something, and then you come and you're like, he looks at you, maybe you're like, you're still continuing and you're not like him trying to stop at the same time. It makes you feel like, you know, you're doing wrong or whatever, you know. I'm just saying, you know, that circumstance might come up, you know. So just looking for clarification about al-Fiqh.
Now, another thing, a lot of times, wallahi, this is something that we have to learn to do. Now, wallahi, Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ruhaili is here right now, and he's doing a 4-day Dora. He started yesterday. And he's talking about how to refute or respond to the person who is in opposition. You know, is in opposition to the haqq, basically. Wallahi, I mean, just listening, just yesterday, this is something, wallahi, I mean, where are my notes, man? My notes are somewhere, man. They're in the car. I didn't bring them in. That you have to, there are so many steps you have to do when knowing, you have to be sincere. You have to be following the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You have to be knowing what you're talking about, you know, and you have to have studied how to respond or refute to someone. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And most of us have never ever studied any of this. You know, most have never studied any of that of how to respond to someone. We just think, you know, we heard the hadith, change it with your hand, if not with your tongue, if not with your heart, you know, and we just change it with our hand, however, and our tongue, however. But you know, we never even think about that there's a way to change it with your hand, a way to change it with your tongue, a way to change it with your heart, you know? And we never study any of that. We just do it. One of the main things we have to do when dealing with one another is be sincere. Do I know you as being someone who follows his desires? Right? I don't know that. I don't know. So I don't know. I know you to be someone who tries to be on the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you're eating at the adhan time, how am I going to talk to someone who I believe is trying to do the right thing but is wrong, in my opinion? Wrong in my opinion. Wrong in my understanding. How am I going to talk to that person? He's wrong in my understanding, but I believe he's someone who wants the truth. How am I going to talk to that person? Am I going to talk to him the same way I'm going to talk to someone who listens to music and has a girlfriend and smokes cigarettes right outside the masjid door and causes problems and barely prays? He makes wudu real sloppily. And when I try to tell him about wudu, advise him about wudu, he says, man, you don't know everything, blah, blah, blah. Am I going to deal with him the same way that I'm going to deal with the brother who I think knows is trying to follow the sunnah? No, I'm going to deal with them differently. You know what I mean? You're going to deal with them differently. So when I look at someone eating with this hamburger in his hand, number one, say my kid. I'm going to deal with my kid differently, man. Put that burger down. It's time for fasting. He's my kid. He's my son. He's young. I'm going to tell him what to do, right? He's a little kid, not Muawiyah. Muawiyah's 15 now, a grown man, got a beard. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to tell him what to do. You know what I mean? Like that. I'm going to say, hey, come on, bro. Put the burger down. You know, it's fasting. It's over with. I'm going to talk to him one way. When he's a kid, I say, hurry up, put it down, man. I'm going to be a little more demanding in it, right? Versus a grown man. Who do I have control over and who do I not have control over? You know? And then, is he doing it out of desires or not doing it out of desires? All of these things are going to play a role. If we deal with one another sincerely, then inshallah there won't be any problems. You just got to be sincere in how you deal with that person who you see or who sees you. And you got to say, okay, I believe I can have a burger in my hand at the time of the adhan. So when Mustafa comes and yells at me, Abu Muawiyah, I'm Mustafa. When Abu Muawiyah comes and yells at me about having a burger in my hand, why is he yelling at me? Do I believe Abu Muawiyah is the type of dude who wants to control everything and just has to be his way and he ain't really see nothing and he just what he read and he's forcing me? Well, then I'm going to deal with him one way. I'm going to respond to him one way. Or do I believe, you know, Abdul Hakim, you know, he's a studied person and he's nicer and he's only telling me because he cares. You see what I'm saying? He don't want to control me. He just cares. But Mustafa Abu Muawiyah, he's controlling. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to deal with this one different than I deal with that one. You know, in response to me having the burger in my hand. Like, you know, so on. So therefore, just be sincere. Wallahi, ikhlas is difficult, man. Very difficult. And maybe we don't understand the concept of that, you know, because we think we're sincere. And if Sufyan al-Thawri and them struggled with sincerity, I don't know how we've reached it so easily, you know. So if we're just sincere with one another, you know, when Omar grabbed the guy by his arm and took him across the city to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him, you know, this guy's reciting Quran differently than you taught me. I mean, how many times did Omar do stuff like this? Radiallahu anhu. You know, did that person get upset? Did that person refuse to give bayat to Omar later on? Did he cause problems and trouble? No, because he knew Omar was sincere in what he was doing. He knew he was sincere in trying to protect the book of Allah Azza wa Jal from being distorted. So he was fine with what Omar did. He didn't necessarily liked it, but you know what I mean? He was fine with it because he understood. He knew Omar was sincere and he was sincere. So if we deal with each other with sincerity, these differences won't cause any division amongst us, man.
That's true. SubhanAllah, makes total sense.
You know,
Less argumentation.
the Sahaba prayed, some of them in Bani Qurayza and some of them before Bani Qurayza. The Prophet said, don't pray Asr till you reach Bani Qurayza. Some prayed before, saying no, he meant rush, and some said no. He said, don't pray until then. We ain't praying until then, even if the time goes out. The Prophet ﷺ never said who was right or wrong, because both of them were sincere. The Sahaba came together, and they couldn't figure out on a travel which was the direction of the Qibla. So they all prayed in different directions. Imagine if we did that today. Imagine if we were all out on a trip. Abdurrahman, Abdul Khaliq, and Abdul Zahir, and Amir, and Massaw, and Abu Muhammad. We were all out on a trip, and we couldn't agree to pray, and so we all prayed our own directions. Man, we wouldn't talk to each other for days. Oh, this dude don't want to listen to me, man. I know what I'm talking about, man. My phone works, man. My compass works, man. Man, my app's up to date. His app ain't up to date. He got that old thing. Man, we would fight each other over it. And they prayed different directions. All of them. Each one of them prayed somewhere differently. No one prayed behind one another because they couldn't agree. And they didn't have no problem with it because they knew they were all sincere. They knew that no one was just bucking the system to you know, just to go against the grain. No, they knew that they were sincere in what they wanted and what they were trying to do in worshiping Allah. So if we know this from one another, and we can't know it, but we have to have husnul dhan with one another. We have to have good suspicions with one another. We have good thoughts about one another, right? I don't think any of us know each other well enough to say, yeah, but he always does this. He always does that. No, if we're all praying in the same masjid, doing this and that, chances are, unless it's just, you know, someone who causes chaos, chances are we find a lot more in common than we don't. We find each other practicing the sunnah more than not. We find each other trying to follow what's right and what we know more than not. So have good thoughts and don't say, yeah, well, he's probably just following his desires or, you know, whatever. Just have good thoughts about one another and be sincere with one another, man. And all these problems will go away.
Can I ask one more question? I know this is taking too long.
It's That's fine. Muawiyah went to school early. He got a ride, so no problem.
Okay. So let's say you're trying to be sincere. You're trying to have ikhlas towards all the brothers. But then you come across some brothers, they tend to it's not the case, like their action, their mannerism doesn't show the ikhlas, and Allah knows best. I'm just whatever is apparent, you know. That's how I'm looking at it.
Right.
A little bit more like, you know, you do you, I'ma do me, you do you, like that type of attitude.
Right.
Like, how do you go about that? Like, you're not going to ignore the brother, mashallah, the brother is still on the deen practicing, but there's this thing missing, you know, where, you know, how would you go about that?
Well, I mean, you have to weigh things. Like, for example, is me talking about this guy or talking to him going to cause a bigger problem?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to cause a bigger problem? If I say something to him because he got the burger in his hand, right? Is it going to cause a bigger problem? You know, is he going to go around now saying this and this and that? Then I'm going to leave it alone. Him eating the burger at the wrong time, that's on him. You know what I mean? And hopefully he's not the imam, so people ain't taking him as an example or something. You see what I'm saying? But
right.
but if I say something to him, it's going to be a bigger problem. Yeah, you catch more bees with honey than vinegar. Yeah. So I mean, you know, you just have to be sincere to him no matter what. You advise him if you can advise him. You advise him if you can advise him. And not everybody you can advise. Not everybody you can advise. right? You try to, and you're being sincere to him. In this case, is going to be, I'd rather keep a somewhat decent relationship than have it blowing up over something so silly. You know what I mean? And then you can find a way to do it. Ask someone else who maybe he's close to that he does listen to. Maybe, maybe people don't listen to me, but they'll listen to you. So I say, Amr, please go talk to him. You see what I'm saying? And maybe it'll work. You have to find it. Well, this is this is medicine. This is medicine, and some different doctors are going to apply different types of medicine. Somebody's going to give you Panadol, somebody's going to give you Tylenol, somebody's going to give you just pure ibuprofen, somebody's going to give you something else, and it may be that's all that doctor knows. He doesn't know all the medicine of the world. He knows only the medicine that he studied. And another doctor gives a different medicine. This one says take 2 a day. This one says take 1 a day. This one says take 2 twice a day, whatever. And this one might be more right than that one. You know what I mean? And it just you got more and more to do with experience. This is why it would pay to be around the ulama to see how they deal with things, how they deal with people in different situations. If you can't be around them, try to read about their lives. Try to read about their lives to see how they dealt with people. This is one way of learning, so you can get the experience by reading about them. And just know your limits. Like when I say it's a medicine, then it means you have to study it first. You see what I'm saying? You have to study medicine before you can even try to implement it, whether it's 1 pill, 2 pills, twice a day, once a day, whatever. So it's something that needs to be studied and dealt with. But if you're sincere and you believe you can talk to the person, then talk to them. If you believe it's going to make a bigger problem, then don't talk to them. Have someone else talk to them. Or maybe sometimes some people it's just best to leave alone. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's all, there is no cookie cutter answer. There's no everyone's going to be the same. It's going to be different for every individual. But this is why it takes knowledge and patience and hikmah and experience. You're going to make mistakes in the beginning and you're going to feel bad about it and try to fix them later on down life. That's you think that the early people didn't maybe make some mistakes. Why they got different opinions? Because they changed them. You know what I mean? You think they never made a mistake? You think Ibn Taymiyyah never offended anyone? You know what I mean?
Right. That's true.
So, inshallah ta'ala, we just keep striving. Be sincere, man. Strive to be sincere. And like I said, I don't know how we think we've reached sincerity when the Salaf struggled with it. They struggled with it when it was easier to reach. and it's harder for us to reach today with social media and all the other things distracting us and everything else. It's harder for us to reach, yet we think we've met it. How many of us have studied sincerity, read a book on sincerity, and made a program to try to implement it? I don't know anyone really. You know what I mean? And so it's so difficult to reach. But it's easy to say. I might sit here and what I'm saying somebody say, man, that needs to be written down in gold, for example. Man, I'm gonna get up and then I'm gonna see something later. I mean, you stupid dude, what I tell you? So I'm gonna be the first one to mess up, I'm gonna be the first one to mess up. Well, I almost died. So may Allah help us, inshallah. May Allah help us. Ameen. Jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah, we'll conclude here and come back tomorrow's Babel Rabi' bidnillah ta'ala. Same time for everyone except in America. It will be 1 hour later for you guys. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.